Hey everyone, Sakurayasen here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Alright, so this is a terrible page. I don't know what happened here, so I think I started drawing this one first, and it was just like failing so bad that I couldn't. I drew a frog who's pissed off or sad or something. I couldn't continue. And so I made a bunch of squares, and then I just tried to draw the way I do in my black sketchbook, my secret sketchbook. But with pen, because in that one I use pencil and just, I don't know, tried to see, well, what would happen if I did a bunch of them like that. And this is the result. So I don't know. I guess sometimes you just know it's going to be a throwaway day, and you gotta think outside the box, I guess, to still make it something. So here, I guess back on track. It wasn't as bad as the previous day. Like this guy. And I don't know, I was thinking of some kind of secretary when I did this one. I usually don't draw scenes, but I thought, okay, well, maybe just for this time, I guess. And so I ended up fleshing it out, well, these three, and I got this result. It seems to be working. It's a pretty fast lay-in, although this one took way longer because of all the other stuff than this, even though it looks not much. Like, it still looks super simple and pretty blah, but it still took way longer. So here, hand study and some skeletons, and I don't know. I guess just one of those days where you draw and you don't really know what you're gonna draw or what to draw, and it's like, well, but I gotta draw something, so you just draw something. And then here, I was playing with this type of character, this weirdly pushed diagonal character, and then I wanted to give him a full body and see how that would be. I can't say it's a great success. There's this rhythm that goes down here, and then it comes this way, and then even in the body, so it's this diagonal, and then this, and then this. I suppose it's kind of like a lightning bolt, if you think of the silhouette. Here, it's just, again, designy stuff, like, where do you put the positive space in a thing, and how much negative space do you have, how much positive space do you have in order to have a decent design. Even things like this guy wearing a shirt, and I drew like this kind of designy thing, and then just how would you break it up to be somewhat interesting and appealing. Here, again, like, I guess this whole page is focused on design and shapes and things. How do you get this, or what's a decent proportion? What if you make the shoulders really wide and sort of flat, the neck skinny, and then the legs really long? Creates this type of I don't know, silhouette, I guess. And just like, I put it down, and then I asked myself, like, do I like that? I drew this one first, and I thought, what's missing? Because it felt pretty boring, and then I realized, like, well, these are too circular. This is sort of based off a circle. And so if I base it off an ellipse instead, it looks a lot more dynamic. And so that was a thing. Like, okay, so do that. Remind myself, diagonal ellipse type shapes, these ovals are more dynamic. Okay, put that in a character. So put that here, pushing it, and again, testing. Do I like that? And this is something I really, really encourage people to do. I don't know how to explain it yet, because I still tell people, put things down and try it and see what works, and then build off of that. And I feel like most people don't really get what I mean, and I'm sure it's because I'm not explaining it well. But it's this kind of thing, like, just experiment, try something, and then look at it, and then ask yourself, well, what is working or what's not working? And then look for solutions. So here I was thinking a lot about different shapes to start the head with. And here you can see it's not a circle, it's this type of sort of triangular face. And here it's sort of a diagonal oval again. Just trying to get out of that typical start with a circle and then divide it with a crosshair down the middle. And I don't think that's bad necessarily. But at some point, I think it's good to go beyond that. See in this one as well, the head is like this oval shape. And then you still have the cross to represent the center line of the face, which wasn't done perfectly because you can see the nose here is off. So would need to be actually touching that line. More like this one. It's a bit more correct. But yeah, just pushing things, doing the same for the body, using these diagonal types of shapes, and then putting it in a skull as well, because this stuff needs to work in anatomy properly. And here's like a cat thing. If it doesn't, you're not doing it right. It's just like, this is the thing when people talk about style, and you wonder like, what's style compared to just a lack of knowledge? When is it just that you're hiding your mistakes behind the idea of style? And I think when you're doing that, it's when the structure underneath or the anatomy doesn't work. Whereas in this case, it still fits a skull. So it still can work. Same here, like the face is all kind of pushed in weird directions, but it still can work. You can see the orbit for the eye socket would fit there. There's a jaw. I mean, this is a bit off. The brow ridge, like all the anatomy is there. It's just pushed. And then here, I guess the water brush wasn't cooperating. I use these Pentel water brushes, and they seem, and some ink with like watered down ink, and it seems to work for a while, but eventually they kind of clog and it stops working well. So here is another example of what I was just talking about. So instead of building everything off circles, I'm building them off ellipses. And to me, this is a lot more dynamic, a lot more interesting. So yeah, continuing like all throughout, these are all sort of pushed in these weird ways using weird shapes, and then often starting with a shape and not really thinking about the face, but then just putting a face in and seeing, well, how does that look? And then here, trying again with the water brush, you can kind of see how it's failing. And I started with this blue pen first, and then I used a darker one to add detail or strengthen what goes where after the fact. So whereas before I was using these ellipses and things, I was still doing that here, but I wanted to also incorporate perspective. So you can see these boxes. Like here, this guy's sitting on a plane, and then here, there's a box to try and encompass the head. I don't think I did so well with this one. This one, probably a bit better. This one, see, fits inside a box. So I don't remember if I started with the box and then drew the face, or started with the face and then drew the box. Usually what I do, actually, is I'll start with a general shape, then I'll put the box in, then I'll sort of flesh it out. Yeah, here, this one is also working a bit better. The key is that you have this corner at the corner of the head. And if you think of it like a perfect sphere, it's really hard to find the corner of a thing. But if you think of it more like a box, the head, then you would have like roughly a corner of the shape, and then you can build things. Even with this part, I tried to think of where would a box be. And yeah, so boxes and faces and boxes, this one's really off. Because if you look at this, like this corner of the eye, if the box is going this way, then this should be matched. Like this corner should be up here, see, matching the perspective, but it really isn't. So that one's a pretty big fail. This one too, you can see if you take a point here and you go across to the other side and find the same point, it should line up with the box, but in this case it doesn't. So that again is bad. But this one's okay. This little imaginary Bob Meatbag type drawing. It's kind of okay. Not perfect. And then I just did some continuous line things. These are usually what I do at the end if I'm running out of steam and I just want to put down marks to fill up space. I'll tend to do things like this. Sometimes you do less drawings, I do less drawings, and it's because the thinking that goes into the drawing is much harder, and so I really run out of energy. Whereas other times, if it doesn't require much thinking, I can do a lot on a page, but if it does require a lot of thinking, it kind of fizzles out. I'm still trying to get better at managing energy, because I think that's something important. Here I was thinking about lighting, especially with these three, just putting them in boxes and then thinking of light hitting them and where would it hit and where would shadows be cast. Drawing like an alien character. And then all these circles are just, usually I do them at the end and they're just to move my arm. And I also do these kinds of shapes, but much bigger in the beginning, but I don't touch the page, just to warm up my arm. And this one I kind of liked. Thought it was sort of interesting, maybe not great, but so I decided to flesh it out a bit more, and paint it. I kind of like a lot of them in this stage though, where it's like half painted, and this is just it's just this, but at 50% opacity, so the drawing shows through. But it has a kind of cool look. I was just making them for this video, so it's not so jarring to go from. There's like sort of an in-between, and you can see where things changed. But yeah, I kind of like it at this stage, and then this stage. It looks very dark, but that's a lot of it is because of it's in a white background. Like if all of this white was black, then this wouldn't look so dark. But because it's not, it does. Okay, so more faces. More faces in boxes. This one's just terrible. These faces, they often describe how I feel about things. This one's okay. That arm gets maybe too skinny, I'm not sure. I think maybe mostly if I was going to go the skinny, it's that this is strange. Like this isn't how the bicep would work. And then this guy's kind of interesting, very squished horizontally. And that's just because I pushed this one vertically. Well, if you do something to one, try doing the opposite to another. And then I flesh this guy out more. Again, it's really dark, but I don't know, still quite dark. I'm not sure. So here I finally thought about K again, and I was thinking, because I go back and forth with, should I do something with K or not? And the reason why I would is because I feel like people kind of want to see me do a graphic novel type thing or a comic thing, or I guess establish a world. But whenever I think of that, it's really, really hard for me not to make a story. And then when I make a story, I have this thing where I want to make a good story. Even I just can't really escape it. I try and make this is a throwaway story, and it's just some space adventure-y thing. But the more I think about it, the more it just evolves into, no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't work. What if it's about this? And then the better the idea, the more daunting it becomes, because it's like, oh, well, then there's all of this. And also, I tend to, I guess, the stories get dark quickly. And then they become kind of hard for me to use. Like, well, what am I using this for? For Patreon or YouTube? Or like, what? This is going to be probably controversial or something. So the reason I don't do it is because it's just, well, it's too much of that. Like, too much external reasoning for why I should do it. And I usually try not to do things when it's because I think other people, I mean, I used to do this all the time. It's like, oh, well, other people expect this, so I should do it. But I've really tried to stop that. But anyway, I was thinking about Arsha and Kay and their relationship, and I thought, no, they kind of look similar. And what if Arsha is Kay's mother? And okay, if that's the case, what did she look like when she was young? So I drew this one. Kind of a young Arsha. Still wanted her to be strong, but not like super big and, crazy. And then I thought, well, okay, so what would the father look like? And I figured, well, Arsha's got certain characteristics, but Kay has others. So you need someone that this plus something would equal this. And so I thought of, like, okay, so maybe something like this, because the eyebrows are very different between these two, but you need something thicker here that gets shorter. I gave the triangles to the dad, the collar as well, because she wears these collars, not in this one. And yeah, I don't know much of the story about it. I imagine they had a kid and he's sort of just a wandering type guy, was in her life for a while and then left. Maybe that hardened her and made her, into this form. But yeah, it was just an idea. But I thought it was a pretty, I guess, kind of fun exercise. And going back to just drawings, this one's, I don't know if I like it or not. I guess I like the shapes. Like, I like this big hair shape and that, but I don't feel the rest is done very well. Kind of like this one. Yeah, okay. All right, so here I switched from the blue, light blue, to a green, and here I was just doing like cartoony, I guess. There's Bob, there's me, there's Fluffy. Doesn't really look like any of us. I think Bob's came out the best because that does feel like how he stands. Mine, I don't know. I think of myself as pretty fat and a double chin, which I don't like, or at least I sometimes do. And yeah, so yeah, I guess that's it. With this one, I just wanted to get some energy, but I don't think I really got it. I mean, the body feels very forced. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like a proper position. This guy's kind of interesting. And I kind of like the attitude on this one. I was thinking about things being very pointy. You can see here. Yeah, got super pointy. Here it's a lot more rounded. And then here, again, I think I drew this one first, and I thought, well, okay, so that's... Because I keep going between this like more realistic approach, and then more cartoony. So I drew this one, and I thought, okay, so if I was pushing that and using more intuition instead of, I guess, knowledge to draw, how would that be? And how could I make it more cool and interesting? So I got from this to this. And yeah, and this one, very pointy everything. And I kind of wanted to flesh her out, but I don't know if this was, going too far. So I just focused on this part. And yeah, again, I like this in-between phase between the where it's still sketchy, and then this is the more painted version. Things are all smoothed out. So yeah. Here's another Arsha, just making her really massive and strong looking. And then this, I don't think that works for a K, but whatever. It's just a thing. And here's some random person, just again exploring with different shapes, different things. Like having this floating hair thing going on, which is something I do every once in a while. Another Arsha, right? As if like wind is blowing and just standing in a hurricane or something. This guy's kind of interesting too. Keeping things very sharp and pointy. Because I've been also, as much as I've been going from realism to more cartoony, I'm also going from sharps to curves to sharps, and like how sharp do I make it? How round do I make it? You can see this guy's a lot more curvy. I mean, relatively more curvy than this guy is. And I'm seeing how, there's an arm here, seeing how it's sort of important to start with curves a lot, because that creates volumes. And then after the volumes are there, it's not such a big deal to sharpen them. But I started with round shapes for gestures initially, but I didn't really create the shapes as round. I had the gesture, and I'd sort of flesh it out, and then I would sharpen it. Now I let it go more round, or more, I guess I'm just opening up to different shapes, like letting some of the things be more boxy, then some of the things be more round, then some of the things be more sharp. And I think that works more. I get to use more of my intuitive process, because when I create these rounded shapes, I can see and feel the shapes better than when I try and create them very angular. And I suppose that's just because in the real world, everything is, like with my shapes, I like to do concave shapes, but in the real world, everything is convex. And usually when you see a concave thing, it's just a bunch of convexes combined. And this is especially true in the human body. With the bones, you can have areas that look more concave, but even with those, if you really look close, you'll notice they're still made up of convexes. And I hope that makes sense to someone. So here, I'm kind of like this character, so I just drew her, or variations. I like this kind of point to the face. It's got a very forward motion to it. So just tried that more. And here it's more continuous line thing. So I just put the pen down, start drawing, and then let it move where it wants. And I end up with these types of things. I don't really know what to do with them. I do them a lot, but I don't really know whether to flesh them out or not, or, I don't know if it's just a thing that I do because I'm bored, or I don't know. So here I drew this guy, and then I felt like there's not enough of that diagonal push, and I drew this guy. And it still felt sort of the same, kind of boring. So I thought, well, okay, I mean, maybe this would be interesting to me before, but now I'm more like, no, I can go more dynamic than this. So I did this one that was sort of supposed to be even more pushed and even more dynamic, and using much more of these diagonals, these ellipses, rather than here, where it's still a bit more rounded, a little more boxy and structural. Here, it goes very pushed. See, like the head, just super horizontal and squished. And this one's more boxy. It's still kind of horizontal, but not as much as this. And I do prefer this type anyway. I always like when things are really pushed. They make me kind of excited to look at the thing. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I guess I like seeing the extremes of things, not the in-between stage where it's sort of, it's like, I don't know, go big or go home, I think. So these are some more characters. This one, kind of messed up on the hair here because it's not symmetrical, but kind of liked it overall, so just did this, kind of fix the hair a bit. And yeah, still think it's okay. It's all right. This character, I wanted to get this, like this head shape and this rhythm going around, and goes into the back and then cracks back here. But it doesn't feel like it goes really. Like it feels like these legs don't quite work with this head. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, how do I make a body that works? And even with this one, it was the same idea. Like, you have this type of head, which isn't that, that's not that hard for me to do anymore. And then what does the body look like? How do you match it to this type? And I don't know, it's okay, but it doesn't feel great here. And so this is really the struggle. Okay, you've got heads that work. What do you do about the body? And one of the things I've been doing is simplifying, including, because the heads are very simplified. They don't have much detail. And so the body should have the same feeling. And I tend to add all the muscles. And that's just because I want to understand the muscles. It's kind of like anatomy study, but with characters that I would care more to draw rather than, very boring, basic stuff. And with this character, like the head's okay, the neck's okay, the body, I guess so far it's okay because there's not much of a body shown, but that really is something I'm struggling with in here. It's carrying over, so I'm still working on that. Like, okay, so if I create a head like this, what's the body like? And here I kind of thought of this idea that whatever the head shape is, you could replicate that shape in the body. So here, you have like this peanut-like shape, right? Where it's bigger on the top, a bit smaller. And then I just inverse that, so it's smaller at the top here, and then bigger. But it's a similar anyway, peanut shape for the body. And then it felt like, I guess that kind of works a bit better. Like, it still doesn't feel great, but it kind of works. And this idea of, you have this very long neck, and it's very skinny. So I made this very skinny as well. I'm not sure that really works. This one, he's got very like a sausage-like head. So I created a sausage-like body so that you get this continuation of the pose, the gesture. That's kind of funny. This one, it's very big and round. And then, okay, keep that going. But I don't think that really works. Don't think any of these are very much successful. But here as well, like the chin just juts out. The nose juts out. So I had the stomach do the same thing. Just boop, juts out. And then here, I think these ones were, again, trying to explore this. How does the head work with the body? But then also doing different body types. So different sizes of, the breast, the width, the waist, the shoulders, things like that. These are more rounded and sloped. These are more, up shoulders. This neck is super thin and long. This one's more fat. This person's older. So even the breasts are like older, saggy, things like that. And I worked on these three more. And like that. And so still, I'm really liking this in-between stage the more I see it. Then, yes to that. And gave her some like hair color. This one I made her dark skin, so I had to make the nipples and the lips and things according to that. Because with dark skin, it goes a bit more purple. With light skin, it goes a bit more pink. So, more continuous line things, scribbly things. This one, I'm not sure if it works perfectly, but I kind of like it. It feels like, that's got something. See, it's very wide and very pushed, but still, to me anyway, it feels appealing. It still feels like nice to look at. So that's something. This one's a bit better too. Even this one, I suppose, I suppose it's getting there. It's like, okay, it's working out. I found that making the legs a lot skinnier really helps. And then this top heavy thing. So yeah, I would say this one, starting to work. This is kind of interesting, this scribbly guy. It helps to squint when I look at them. Sometimes I even draw them and I'm just squinting to get the broad shapes, because really it's just a bunch of scribbles, and if I just tried to focus on where do I put scribbles, it wouldn't work. What I have to do is sort of just let my arm put down marks and not think of them as scribbling or line, but rather just tone. So if I add more line, it will get darker, and that's a shadow, things like that. So here, just more faces, playing around with different shapes, more tall, this different nose shape, different eye shape, different mouth, different expressions. This guy looks silly. I don't know if they're great, but it's something. I figure I need to do so many of these in order to have it natural, because that's what I'm really going for. I want drawing to be easy and fluid and fun. So I figure I can't just do one and then, okay, this is done. All right, let's go into finished works and paintings and start, being a thing. I feel like, no, it's not easy yet. It doesn't feel natural. And maybe this is wrong. Maybe I should just, do things sooner, but seems to work as well this way, albeit a bit slow. So here, more stuff. I kind of like this guy. The proportions are different though. So see, this is a lot of the issue I have is how cartoony do I go, how realistic? Because this, I wouldn't say, this is very pushed, but it doesn't feel cartoony per se to me anyway. Even this one, it's sort of, but it's kind of different. And finding that balance, finding that medium. See, here it got more realistic again. Relatively more realistic, because this is still obviously not realistic, but compared to when it's super cartoony, it still feels a bit more like that. And this is a lot more scribbly. So I was probably experimenting with that, what if I draw differently? What happens? Kind of some nice faces in here. And then here is pretty much the opposite of this. Like, this is all scribbly. There's lots of lines everywhere. The proportions are more realistic. It's a lot more interrupted lines. And here it's a lot more clean, simplified, and I suppose very cartoony. So I took these two and worked on them some more. Fix this guy's teeth a bit. They're still not great, but yeah, kind of like him. I like the eye anyway. I think that looks kind of nice. And this one, just simplified him. The first thing I had to do is get the planes, because in the drawing, you see, there's no information here. So I have to imagine, like, okay, so looking at this, it gives me a hint on what this is doing, but also just what is this form like? And so kind of figured, okay, so this part is one value, and then it turns, so it's got to shift. Value change indicates a form change. So if this form is like this, or a plane, then it's got to change value as it shifts this way. And certain parts that are facing the top are going to be lighter. So what's facing directly at the top? Well, this forehead is pretty much getting hit by the light source if the light's coming from this way. So is this, and so is this, but this isn't. And this is maybe a bit. So it's trying to make the planes in your head and really think, where does everything go? And then assign it the right values. And then the coloring and the rest is, it's not really that difficult. And so I did these characters as well. I work on some and not others, and I suppose it's just whatever I feel is something that strikes me. Like, I very well could have drawn her as well and fleshed her out, but I didn't, because I felt this one just stood out more to me as a character. Maybe it's not drawn as well, but it's just got this character to her. So yeah, I ended up fleshing her out. Some more. Boop, boop. And yeah, gave her a bit of a design on her shirt to break it up, make it look less, I guess, boring. And gonna be continuing onward, trying to get better, and moving on to some new exciting things in the future. So I hope you stick with me, and I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.